The rain was relentless that Saturday afternoon, pounding against the windshield of Emily Carter's beat-up sedan as she navigated the slick streets of Boise, Idaho. Her tires hissed over wet asphalt, the wipers barely keeping up with the deluge. Most people would have stayed home in weather like this. But Emily wasn't most people. For nearly a decade, she'd made this drive every weekend to her parents' two-story craftsman home on Maple Avenue, a house she'd practically rebuilt with her own sweat and savings. At 34, Emily had poured her life into keeping her family afloat, working 2 jobs, skipping vacations, and sacrificing dreams to ensure her parents, Margaret and Tom, never lost the roof over their heads. Today, though, something felt different. A knot tightened in her stomach as she pulled into the driveway. The familiar sight of the sagging porch and peeling shutters greeting her like an old wound. Emily grabbed her umbrella and stepped out, the cold rain stinging her hands. Inside, the house smelled of her mom's lavender candles and the faint must of old wood. Margaret was in the kitchen, humming softly as she sorted through a basket of apples from the farmer's market. You're soaked," she called, barely looking up. "Can you check some papers for me? They're on the dining table. I can't make heads or tails of them." Emily nodded, shaking off her jacket. Her mom wasn't tech-savvy, never had been, so Emily had become the family's unofficial accountant. Sorting bills, filing taxes, and scanning documents. It was just another way she kept the Carters from falling apart. The dining table was a mess of envelopes, receipts, and crumpled post-it notes. Emily sifted through the pile, her fingers brushing against a thick, ivory envelope that stood out like a warning sign. The words "Last Will and Testament" were embossed in bold black ink across the front. Her heart skipped a beat. She wasn't snooping, not really, but as the one who'd been paying the mortgage, fixing the furnace, and replacing the roof, she figured she had a right to know what was in it. After all, this house, with its creaky floors and chipped paint, was as much hers as it was her parents'. She'd earned that much. Emily slid the document out, her eyes scanning the legalese until she reached the section on asset distribution. The words hit her like a punch to the chest. Everything, the house, valued at over $500, her parents' $300 savings, the new pickup truck in the garage, even her mom's heirloom sapphire ring, was bequeathed to her younger sister, Lily Carter. Emily's name appeared only once, in a vague, throwaway line. "We cherish both our daughters." That was it. No mention of the years she'd worked herself to the bone, the nights she'd driven through blizzards to deliver her mom's heart medication, the weekends spent patching drywall or unclogging pipes. Her knuckles whitened as she gripped the paper, the room spinning around her. Every memory of sacrifice flashed through her mind like a cruel montage. The second job at the diner, where she'd smiled through aching feet to cover the electric bill. The time she'd sold her old guitar to pay for a new water heater. The countless hours she'd spent on hold with the bank to refinance the mortgage when her dad's pension wasn't enough. All of it, erased by a single page. The betrayal wasn't just in the words, it was in the assumption that Emily, the reliable one, didn't need anything, that her love, her labor, her life, could be taken for granted. The back door creaked open, and Margaret's footsteps echoed through the kitchen. Did you find that insurance statement?" her mom asked, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Emily stood, the will trembling in her hands, and turned to face her. Her voice was steady, but it carried the weight of a decade's worth of unspoken hurt. "Mom, is this real?" Margaret froze, her eyes darting to the document. "Oh, honey, it's just," she stammered, her usual warmth replaced by something cagey. "What does this mean?" Emily cut in, her throat tight but her words sharp as glass. "I've spent my entire life keeping this family together, and you've written me out like I'm nothing." Tom, her dad, appeared in the doorway, his flannel shirt rumpled and a coffee mug in hand. He set it down with a heavy sigh, as if this was just a minor inconvenience. "Emily, don't make a mountain out of a molehill. You're doing fine. Lily, she's still finding her way." Emily let out a laugh, sharp and humorless. "Finding her way? She's 29. Dad, she bounces between gig jobs, lives off TikTok, and can't even pay her own car insurance. I'm the one who's been paying your mortgage for 5 years. I'm the one who fixed the garage door last spring. Who called the plumber at 2 a.m. when the basement flooded? I've kept this house standing. Dollar by dollar. And you're telling me it's all for her? Her voice cracked. But she didn't back down. Margaret stepped forward, reaching for Emily's hand. Sweetie, don't overthink it. We just wanted Lily to feel secure. You've always been so strong. Emily pulled her hand away. Her gaze icy. Secure? And what about me? The one who's been holding this family up since I was 25. Silence hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Her parents exchanged a glance. But neither spoke. Emily placed the will back on the table. Her movements deliberate, like she was setting down a grenade. Thanks for showing me where I stand, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She grabbed her jacket and walked to the door. The rain outside roaring louder than the storm inside her. No one called after her. No one tried to stop her. As she climbed into her car, the weight of what she'd just read settled into her bones, not just hurt, but a hollow, chilling emptiness. For years, Emily had believed that her sacrifices would be seen, that her love would be returned. But that document, with its cold, printed lines, had shattered that illusion. She started the engine, the wipers slashing through the rain, and made a decision. She was done. No more mortgage payments. No more late-night repairs. No more being the family's safety net. Emily Carter was stepping off the tightrope she'd been walking for a decade. And she wasn't looking back. The drive home was a blur. The city lights smearing through the rain-streaked windows. Emily's phone buzzed in the passenger seat, probably her mom. Or maybe Lily, expecting her to fix something. As always, she didn't pick it up. For the first time in years, she felt the faint stirrings of something new. Not freedom. Not yet. But the possibility of it. The road ahead was dark. But Emily was ready to find her own way, without the weight of a house. Or a family. That had never truly been hers. The weeks following Emily Carter's discovery of her parents' will were like a slow-motion car crash, messy, painful, and impossible to look away from. After walking out of the Craftsman house on Maple Avenue, Emily had expected something. Maybe an apology. Or at least an acknowledgement of the decades she'd spent keeping her family's world from collapsing. Instead, what she got was a barrage of texts and voicemails, each one more infuriating than the last. Her parents, Margaret and Tom, and her younger sister, Lily, didn't seem to grasp the gravity of what they'd done. To them, Emily's refusal to keep paying the mortgage or handling their bills was a tantrum, not a stand, and they weren't about to let her walk away quietly. It started small. A text from her dad 2 days after the confrontation. The mortgage is due Friday. Can you send the $3,200? No mention of the will. No hint of remorse. Just a casual demand. As if she were an ATM with a heartbeat. Emily stared at the message. Her coffee growing cold on the kitchen counter. Part of her wanted to laugh at the audacity. But another part, the part that had spent years tying herself in knots to please her family, felt a pang of guilt. She typed back, her fingers steady. I think Lily can cover it. The house is hers now. Right? She hit send and turned off her phone. The silence that followed both terrifying and exhilarating. But the Carters weren't done. A voicemail from Margaret came next. Her voice trembling with that practiced mix of worry and manipulation Emily knew too well. Emily. Honey, we need to talk. The power bill's overdue, and I don't know how to log into the account. Can you help? Then Lily, whose messages were always a blend of entitlement and faux innocence. You're overreacting. Mom and Dad didn't mean it like that. I'm not, ready to deal with all this. You've always been the responsible one. Emily didn't respond. She deleted the voicemails, blocked their numbers for a day, and tried to focus on her job at the Boise Art Center, where she taught weekend photography workshops. But the messages kept coming, slipping through cracks like water through a broken dam. When Emily held firm, refusing to pay a single cent, the family's tone shifted from pleading to venomous. One evening, after a long day of editing photos in her cramped apartment, Emily opened her laptop to find a notification from Facebook. Her mom had posted a photo of the Maple Avenue house, its sagging porch bathed in golden light. with a caption that made Emily's blood run cold. "It breaks my heart when a daughter turns her back on family, leaving her sick parents to struggle alone after all we gave her." The post had 90 likes and dozens of comments, mostly from Margaret's church friends and distant cousins Emily barely knew. "How awful. You don't deserve this. Margaret, what kind of child is that?" Emily scrolled further, her hands trembling. Her dad had chimed in with his own post. "We raised Emily to love her family. But when we needed her most, she walked away. The bank's threatening to take our home. And she doesn't care." Lily's contribution was the cruelest, dripping with sarcasm. "Some people act like they're above everyone else. But when it's time to help family, they ghost. Guess that's what strong looks like now." The posts were a public execution, painting Emily as the villain in a story where she'd been the unsung hero for years. Her chest tightened, not with sadness, but with a rage she hadn't known she could feel. For a moment, she considered staying silent, letting their lies fester. But silence was what had kept her trapped for so long, silent while she paid their bills. Silent while she fixed their messes. Silent while they wrote her out of their future. No more. That night, Emily opened her rarely used Facebook account and started typing. Her post was simple but devastating, each word chosen with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. "My family's sharing a one-sided story. Here's the truth." She attached a scanned copy of the will, highlighting Lily's name as the sole beneficiary. She uploaded screenshots of bank statements showing years of mortgage payments from her account, utility bills in her name, and repair receipts she'd kept in a shoebox under her bed. She ended with the final text from her mom, asking for $3,200 to save the house. Her closing line was a quiet bombshell. "My silence wasn't agreement. I was waiting for the right moment to speak. That moment is now." She hit post and closed her laptop, her heart pounding. Within minutes, notifications flooded her phone. Friends from high school, co-workers, even a former teacher commented, "Emily, this is unreal. You did all that? I can't believe they treated you like this. You're stronger than anyone I know." The post spread like wildfire. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was raw. Undeniable truth. By morning, Margaret had deleted her post. Tom deactivated his account. Lily changed her profile picture to a black and white rose, her go-to move when she wanted to seem deep without saying anything. The Carters went silent, their public shaming campaign crumbling under the weight of Emily's evidence. That silence marked the beginning of Emily's transformation. For years, she'd lived in the shadow of her family's needs, her own dreams buried under their endless demands. Now, with the truth out, she felt a weight lift, not fully, but enough to breathe. She signed up for a video editing course she'd always wanted to take, spending evenings learning to splice clips and layer soundtracks. She started a blog, Breaking Free, where she wrote about escaping toxic family dynamics, her words resonating with strangers across the country who'd lived similar betrayals. Her photography workshops at the art center became her sanctuary, where she taught teens to capture the world through their lenses, their excitement reminding her of the joy she'd forgotten. Emily's life began to bloom in small, deliberate ways. She bought a new camera lens, something she'd once considered frivolous. She took evening walks along the Boise River, the sunset painting the water gold. She baked sourdough on Sundays, posting photos on Instagram without worrying about being called selfish for enjoying herself. For the first time, her savings account wasn't drained by someone else's emergencies. She even booked a solo trip to Portland to photograph the autumn leaves, a dream she'd shelved for years. Meanwhile, the house on Maple Avenue was crumbling. A friend at the art center mentioned seeing a "for sale" sign in the yard. The price slashed by $40 due to a leaky roof and faulty wiring, problems Emily would have fixed in a heartbeat a year ago. Word got around that Lily had moved back in with Margaret and Tom, spotted hauling grocery bags with a scowl. The bank had sent a foreclosure notice, and the Carters were scrambling. Emily heard these updates through the grapevine, neighbors, old classmates, but she didn't intervene. She wasn't gloating, but she wasn't grieving either. The house, once a symbol of her duty, was now just a building, its fate no longer her burden. Through it all, Emily learned a truth that cut deeper than the will ever could. Family isn't defined by blood or shared last names. It's built on respect, gratitude, and mutual care, things her parents and sister had never offered. She'd spent years believing that love meant sacrifice, that saying no was betrayal. But now, she understood that saying no was her salvation. She'd set boundaries, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. And those boundaries had given her a life she'd never dared to imagine. Emily knew the Carters might come back, especially when the bank tightened its grip or Lily's investments fell through. She could picture the tearful voicemails, the desperate knocks at her door. But she was ready, not to save them, but to stand her ground. She'd stepped off the merry-go-round of their chaos, and she wasn't getting back on. As she sat in her apartment one rainy evening, editing a video montage of her latest photography project, Emily felt something she hadn't in years: peace. Not the fragile kind that comes from pleasing others, but the steady, unshakable kind that comes from choosing herself.